first pulled the hinges off the car, they were so bad, I actually considered replacing them. What you see now is after 3 layers of paint stripper. And I wire brushed them, sanded them with 60 grit, 150, 220 grit, wire brushed them again. Took a brass brush to them and to final clean them. Sprayed some satin black on them. And they actually turned out pretty good. So I'm glad I didn't buy new hinges. Bought a couple of the pieces of tubing that's supposed to go from the radiator to the overflow reservoir. And I cut 2 pieces, spliced them together to hook up my reservoir. It doesn't look too bad. Bought this rear hood adjuster. Some guys say they don't have them on their cars or they didn't come on the car. I don't know about this one. But I bought it and put it on anyway. Some guys from Trans Am country told me about these. Actually, there's safety studs that catch the hood in case of an accident. And they showed me some diagrams, what height to set them to. Initially, when putting the weather stripping on the car, it seemed like I had it on backwards. But I checked my assembly manual, and that's the way it told me to put it on. So that's what I did. Initially, it came up over the corner of the grill on the cowl, and I didn't like that too much, so I made these hold-down clamps. And the hold-down clamps will hold the weather stripping in place without crushing it too badly. And there I have it on the passenger side, and stretch the weather stripping up over around the grill. And I kind of like the way it looks better. You know, it has more of a shape to it. And got the hood bumpers in place, and you know the cowl's finished. I think everything is on there that needs to be there. Made this stand for holding the hood so I can sand the bottom. There, it's in place. Don't have a lot of room. Set the hood in it and cleaned it with some cleaner and then started sanding away. Had to hit it with some 60 grit because when I was sanding with 150, there's some clear coat on there and it would come off in chunks. And here I have it sanded down in 150 grit, and I'll continue with that. But it's hot. It is so hot right now. We're in the peak summer months, and it's hard to get any work done. Using some white lithium grease to lube the hinges. I'll just put some down on a piece of paper. And I'll use a paintbrush to put it in. I'll just take a paper towel and get there and wipe it off. Try to clean it up best I can so it doesn't attract a bunch of dirt. first took these hinges off, I don't even know if I was going to be able to save them. They were such bad shape. But after several coats of paint stripper and tacking them with a wire brush and several grits of sandpaper and then a brass bristle brush, it actually cleaned up pretty nice. Well, I'll get the plastic off, try to keep the dust off the car a little bit. Cleaned up the engine compartment. I don't want to get it all dirty. So I get the hood back on. Won't be a big deal. It's hot in here. I'm sweating like a pig. Alright, I'll grab the hinge and we'll install the right hinge. And there's a little trick that I found out about, that if you have perfect hood alignment, it'll help you duplicate that alignment in a pretty easy way. I'll show you how I do that. What I have two little brass rods. They're 1/8 inch in diameter. I just picked up a 12-inch rod at the hardware store and I cut a couple pieces off and kind of beveled the edges. And if you have really good hood alignment on your car before you remove the hood and you want to put it back on in a pretty effortless way, I drilled two 1/8 inch holes before I took the hood hinge loose. And what I'll do is I'll just slide these pins in. I'll set the hood hinge in place, slide these pins through, and it should put the hinge in exactly the same location it was in before I took it off the car. So I'll try to carefully put these hinges on. I don't want to scratch everything up. It's hot in here. I'm sweating all over everything. Alright, loose enough where I can move them around pretty easy. Now I gotta find the hole, stick the pin in. One. It's the second one. And these hinges should be in exactly the same position they were in before I took them off the car. And it's that easy. Well, we got the hinges on, so let me do a little review of where we're at. The bottom of the hood, I'm working on sanding that out. It's so hot right now that I'm really having a tough time spending any significant amount of time working on it. Just about have it sanded out with 150, and I'm going to have to hit it again with 220 and then 320 before I put paint on it. I'm going to paint it satin black. And I've seen photos of original cars that have body color, and I've seen some restored cars that were painted black, and I'm just going to paint it black. I think that'll look okay. And with the satin black, with a low sheen, or if there are any defects, it'll help hide them a little bit. And so that's my plan. And once I get the hood back on the car, really the upper part of the engine bay restoration will be done. So I'd like to get that done, but it's just really hot right now. Here's where we're at now with the engine bay. Have the cowl area done. Got the weather stripping in place and the little safety studs there. And I ended up putting, it's kind of hard to see there, making some shims and a little hold down tab for the edges of the weather stripping. It wanted to fold up over the edge of the grill, and I wanted a nice sharp turn there, so I made those. Help put the weather stripping in place and keep it there. Got the hood bumpers, and doesn't look too bad. And the hinges cleaned up pretty nicely. Yeah, I think the hinges look pretty good. Firewall cleaned up nice. You've got the fuel lines cleaned up, and fender liner, and the control arms and everything repainted. Got the overflow tank hooked up. Got the new shroud. Of course, the inner fenders are painted. New power steering pump. Steering box is rebuilt. Got the wiring redone. Got all the crimps out, and should have good connections for wiring. The new master cylinder and booster. Put the block off plate in for the wiper motor. Kind of clean that up. So overall, I think it made a pretty big difference compared to where I started. And you know, I could take it to a car show now, and the weekend car show, and pop the hood and not feel too bad about it. And you know, once we get the hood back on it, then you know, I can kind of call it good for the top part. And once the weather cools down, and you know, I'll get it up on the lift. I'll start working on the bottom. And I'd like to lower the car a couple inches, and you know, we'll start working there, and we'll work our way back. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's a big improvement over where I started, and you know, the average guy restoration job using a bunch of elbow grease and cleaner and just some rattle cans, and it didn't turn out too bad. I think the only really negative about using spray cans is the paint isn't nearly as durable as a nice catalyzed auto paint, but the cost is certainly Certainly a benefit because it's significantly less expensive. So that's it.